Step 2. Approach and open. The first problem for all of US men and women is not to learn, but to unlearn. Gloria Steinem. I withdrew $500 from the bank, stuffed it into a white envelope, and wrote mystery on the front. It was not the proudest moment of my life, but I had dedicated the last 4 days to getting ready for it anyway, buying $200 worth of clothing at Fred Siegel, spending an afternoon shopping for the perfect cologne, and dropping $75 on a Hollywood haircut. I wanted to look my best. This would be my first time hanging out with a real pickup artist. His name, or at least the name he used online, was Mystery. He was the most worshipped pickup artist in the community, a powerhouse who spit out long, detailed posts that read like algorithms of how to manipulate social situations to meet and attract women. His nights out seducing models and strippers in his hometown of Toronto were chronicled in intimate detail online, the writing filled with jargon of his own invention. Sniper nags, shotgun nags, group theory, indicators of interest, pawning, all of which had become an integral part of the pickup artist lexicon. For years, he had been offering free advice in seduction newsgroups. Then, in October, he decided to put a price on himself and posted the fob, lowing, Mystery is now producing basic training workshops in several cities around the world, due to numerous requests. The first workshop will be in Los Angeles from Wednesday evening, October 10th, through Saturday night. The fee is $500 US. This includes club entry, limo for 4 evenings, suite hop, an hour lecture in the limo each evening with a 30-minute debriefing at the end of the night, and finally 3.5 hours per night in the field, broken up into 2 clubs per night, with Mystery. By the end of basic training, you will have approached close to 50 women. It is no easy feat to sign up for a workshop dedicated to picking up women. To do so is to acknowledge defeat, inferiority, and inadequacy. It is to finally admit to yourself that after all these years of being sexually active, or at least sexually cognizant, you have not grown up and figured it out. Those who ask for help are often those who have failed to do something for themselves. So if drug addicts go to rehab and the violent go to anger management class, then social retards go to pickup school. Clicking send on my email to Mystery was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. If anyone, friends, family, colleagues, and especially my lone ex-girlfriend in Los Angeles, found out I was paying for live in-field lessons on picking up women, the mockery and recrimination would be instant and merciless. So I kept my intentions secret, dodging social plans by telling people that I was going to be showing an old friend around town all weekend. I would have to keep these 2 worlds separate. In my email to Mystery, I didn't tell him my last name or my occupation. If pressed, I planned to just say I was a writer and leave it at that. I wanted to move through this subculture anonymously, without either an advantage or extra pressure because of my credentials. However, I still had my own conscience to deal with. This was far and away, the most pathetic thing I'd ever done in my life. And unfortunately, as opposed to, say, masturbating in the shower, it wasn't something I could do alone. Mystery and the other students would be there to bear witness to my shame, my secret, my inadequacy. A man has two primary drives in early adulthood, one toward power, success, and accomplishment, the other toward love, companionship, and sex. Half of life then was out of order. To go before them was to stand up as a man and admit that I was only half a man. A week after sending the email, I walked into the lobby of the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. I wore a blue sweater that was so soft and thin it looked like cotton, black pants with laces running up the sides, and shoes that gave me a couple extra inches in height. My pockets bulged with the supplies Mystery had instructed every student to bring: a pen, a notepad, a pack of gum, and condoms. I spotted Mystery instantly. He was seated regally in a Victorian armchair, with a smug, I just bench pressed the world smile on his face. He wore a casual, loose-fitting blue-black suit, a small, pointed labored piercing wagged from his chin, and his nails were painted jet black. He wasn't necessarily attractive, but he was charismatic, tall and thin, with long chestnut hair, high cheekbones, and a bloodless pallor. He looked like a computer geek who'd been bitten by a vampire and was midway through his transformation. Next to him was a shorter, intense-looking character who introduced himself as Mystery's wing, Sin. He wore a form-fitting black crew-neck shirt, and his hair was pitch black and gelled straight back. He had the complexion, however, of a man whose natural hair color is red. I was the first student to arrive. "What's your top score?" Sin leaned in and asked as I sat down. They were already assessing me, trying to figure out if I was in possession of a thing called game. My top score? Yeah, how many girls have you been with? Somewhere around 7, I told them. Somewhere around 7? Sin pressed. 6, I confessed. Sin ranked in the 60s, Mystery in the hundreds. I looked at them in wonder. These were the pickup artists whose exploits I'd been following so avidly online for months. They were another class of being. They had the magic pill, the solution to the inertia and frustration that has plagued the great literary protagonists I'd related to all my life, be it Leopold Bloom, Alex Portnoy, or Piglet from Winnie the Pooh. As we waited for the other students, Mystery threw a manila envelope full of photographs in my lap. "These are some of the women I've dated," he said. In the folder was a spectacular array of beautiful women, a headshot of a sultry Japanese actress, an autographed publicity still of a brunette who bore an uncanny resemblance to Liv Tyler, a glossy picture of a penthouse pet of the year, a snapshot of a tan, curvy stripper in a negligee who Mystery said was his girlfriend, Patricia, and a photo of a brunette with large silicone breasts, which were being suckled by Mystery in the middle of a nightclub. These were his credentials. I was able to do that by not paying attention to her breasts all night. He explained when I asked about the last shot. A pickup artist must be the exception to the rule. You must not do what everyone else does. Ever. I listened carefully. I wanted to make sure every word etched itself on my cerebral cortex. I was attending a significant event, the only other credible pickup artist teaching courses was Ross Jeffries, who had basically founded the community in the late 1980s. But today marked the first time seduction students would be removed from the safe environs of the seminar room and let loose in clubs to be critiqued as they ran game on unsuspecting women. A second student arrived, introducing himself as Extra Mask. He was a tall, gangly, impish 26-year-old with a bowl cut, overly baggy clothing, and a handsomely chiseled face. With the right haircut and outfit, he would easily have been a good-looking guy. When Sin asked him what his count was, Extra Mask scratched his head uncomfortably. I have virtually zero experience with girls, he explained. I've never kissed a girl before. You're kidding, Sin said. I've never even held a girl's hand. I grew up pretty sheltered. My parents were really strict Catholics, so I always had a lot of guilt about girls. But I've had 3 girlfriends. He looked at the floor and rubbed his knees in nervous circles as he listed his girlfriends, though no one had asked for the particulars. There was Mitzel, who broke up with him after 7 days. There was Claire, who told him after 2 days that she'd made a mistake when she agreed to go out with him. And then there was Carolina, my sweet Carolina, he said, a dreamy smile spreading across his face. We were a couple for 1 day. I remember her walking over to my house the next afternoon with her friend. I saw her across the street, and I was excited to see her. When I got closer, she yelled, "I'm dumping you." All of these relationships apparently took place in 6th grade. Extra Mask shook his head sadly. It was hard to tell whether he was consciously being funny or not. The next arrival was a tanned, balding man in his 40s who'd flown in from Australia just to attend the workshop. He had a $10,000 Rolex, a charming accent, and one of the ugliest sweaters I'd ever seen, a thick cable knit monstrosity with multicolored zigzags that looked like the aftermath of a finger painting mishap. He reeked of money and confidence. Yet the moment he opened his mouth to give Sin his score, 5, he betrayed himself. His voice trembled, he couldn't look anyone in the eye. And there was something pathetic and childlike about him. His appearance, like his sweater, was just an accident that spoke nothing of his nature. He was new to the community and reluctant to share even his first name, so Mystery christened him Sweater. The 3 of us were the only students in the workshop. Okay, we've got a lot to talk about, Mystery said, clapping his hands together. He leaned in close, so the other guests in the hotel couldn't hear. My job here is to get you into the game, he continued, making piercing eye contact with each of us. I need to get what's in my head into yours. Think of tonight as a video game. It is not real. Every time you do an approach, you are playing this game. My heart began pounding violently. The thought of trying to start a conversation with a woman I didn't know petrified me, especially with these guys watching and judging me. Bungee jumping and parachuting were a cakewalk compared to this. All your emotions are going to try to fuck you up, Mystery continued. They are there to try to confuse you, so know right now that they cannot be trusted at all. You will feel shy sometimes, and self-conscious, and you must deal with it like you deal with a pebble in your shoe. It's uncomfortable, but you ignore it. It's not part of the equation. I looked around. Extra mask and sweater seemed just as nervous as I was. I need to teach you, in 4 days, the whole equation, the sequence of moves you need to win, Mystery went on. And you will have to play the game over and over to learn how to win. So get ready to fail. Mystery paused to order a Sprite with 5 slices of lemon on the side, then told us his story. He spoke in a loud, clear voice, modeled, he said, on the motivational speaker Anthony Robbins. Everything about him seemed to be a conscious, rehearsed invention. Since the age of 11, when he beat the secret to a card trick out of a classmate, Mystery's goal in life was to become a celebrity magician, like David Copperfield. He spent years studying and practicing, and managed to parlay his talents into birthday parties, corporate gigs, and even a couple of talk shows. In the process, however, his social life suffered. At the age of 21, when he was still a virgin, he decided to do something about it. One of the world's greatest mysteries is the mind of a woman, he told us grandiosely. So I set out to solve it. He took a half-hour bus ride into Toronto every day, going to bars, clothing stores, restaurants, and coffee shops. He wasn't aware of the online community or any other pickup artists, so he was forced to work alone, relying on the one skill he did know, magic. It took him dozens of trips to the city before he even worked up the guts to talk to a stranger. From there, he tolerated failure, rejection, and embarrassment day and night until, piece by piece, he put together the puzzle that is social dynamics and discovered what he believed to be the patterns underlying all male-female relationships. It took me 10 years to discover this, he said. The basic format is FMAC, find, meet, attract, close. Believe it or not, the game is linear. A lot of people don't know that. For the next half hour, Mystery told us about what he called group theory. I have done this specific set of events a bazillion times, he said. You do not walk up to a girl who's all by herself. That is not the perfect seduction. Women of beauty are rarely found alone. After approaching the group, he continued, the key is to ignore the woman you desire while winning over her friends, especially the men and anyone else likely to cockblock. If the target is attractive and used to men fawning all over her, the pickup artist must intrigue her by pretending to be unaffected by her charm. This is accomplished through the use of what he called a neg. Neither compliment nor insult. A neg is something in between, an accidental insult or backhanded compliment. The purpose of a neg is to lower a woman's self-esteem while actively displaying a lack of interest in her by telling her she has lipstick on her teeth, for example, or offering her a piece of gum after she speaks. I don't alienate ugly girls. I don't alienate guys. I only alienate the girls I want to fuck, Mystery lectured, eyes blazing with the conviction of his aphorisms. If you don't believe me, you will see it tonight. Tonight is the night of experiments. First, I am going to prove myself. You are going to watch me, and then we are going to push you to try a few sets. Tomorrow, if you do what I say, you will be able to make out with a girl within 15 minutes. He looked at Extra Mask. Name the 5 characteristics of an alpha male. Confidence. Right. What else? Strength? No. Body odor? He turned to Sweater and me. We were also clueless. The number 1 characteristic of an alpha male is the smile, he said. Beaming an artificial beam. Smile when you enter a room. As soon as you walk in a club, the game is on. And by smiling, you look like you're together. You're fun, and you're somebody. He gestured to Sweater. When you came in, you didn't smile when you talked to us. That's just not me, Sweater said. I look silly when I smile. If you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always gotten. It's called the mystery method because I'm mystery. And it's my method. So what I'm going to ask is that you indulge in some of my suggestions and try new things over the next 4 days. You are going to see a difference. Besides confidence and a smile, we learned the other characteristics of an alpha male were being well-groomed, possessing a sense of humor, connecting with people, and being seen as the social center of a room. No one bothered to tell Mystery that those were actually 6 characteristics. As Mystery dissected the alpha male further, I realized something. The reason I was here, the reason Sweater and Extra Mask were also here, was that our parents and our friends had failed us. They had never given us the tools we needed to become fully effective social beings. Now, decades later, it was time to acquire them. Mystery went around the table and looked at each of us. What kind of girls do you want? He asked Sweater. Sweater pulled a piece of neatly folded notebook paper out of his pocket. Last night I wrote down a list of goals for myself, he said, unfolding the page, which was filled with 4 columns of numbered items. And one of the things I'm looking for is a wife. She needs to be smart enough to hold up her end of any conversation and have enough style and beauty to turn heads when she walks into a room. Well, look at you, Mystery said. You look average. People think if they look generic, then they can seduce a wide array of women. Not true. You have to specialize. If you look average, you're going to get average girls. Your khaki pants are for the office. They're not for clubs. And your sweater, burn it. You need to be bigger than life. I'm talking over the top. If you want to get the 10s, you need to learn peacock theory. Mystery loved theories. peacock theory is the idea that in order to attract the most desirable female of the species, it's necessary to stand out in a flashy and colorful way. For humans, he told us, the equivalent of the fan peacock tail is a shiny shirt, a garish hat, and jewelry that lights up in the dark. Basically, everything I dismissed my whole life as cheesy. When it came time for my personal critique, Mystery had a laundry list of fixes. Get rid of the glasses, shape the overgrown goatee, shave the expensively trimmed tumbleweeds on my head, dress more outrageously, wear a conversation piece, get some jewelry, get a life. I wrote down every word of advice. This was a guy who thought about seduction non-stop, like a mad scientist working on a formula to turn peanuts into gasoline. The archive of his internet messages was 3,000 posts long, more than 2,500 pages, all dedicated to cracking the code that is. Woman, I have an opener for you to use, he said to me. An opener is a prepared script used to start a conversation with a group of strangers. It's the first thing anyone who wants to meet women must be armed with. Say this when you see a group with a girl you like. Hey, it looks like the party's over. Here. Then turn to the girl you want and add, if I wasn't gay, you'd be so mine. A flash of crimson burned up my face. Really? I asked. How is that going to help? Once she's attracted to you, it won't matter whether you said you were gay or not. But isn't that lying? It's not lying, he replied. It's flirting. To the group, he offered other examples of openers, innocent but intriguing. Questions like, do you think magic spells work? Or, oh my God, did you see those two girls fighting outside? Sure, they weren't that spectacular or sophisticated, but all they are meant to do is get two strangers talking. The point of mystery method, he explained, is to come in under the radar. Don't approach a woman with a sexual come on. Learn about her first and let her earn the right to be hit on. An amateur hits on a woman right away, he decreed as he rose to leave the hotel. A pro waits 8 to 10 minutes. Armed with our nags, group theory, and camouflage openers, we were ready to hit the clubs. We piled into the limo and drove to the Standard Lounge, a velvet rope-guarded hotel hotspot. It was here that mystery shattered my model of reality. Limits I had once imposed on human interaction were extended far beyond what I ever thought possible. The man was a machine. The Standard was dead when we walked in. We were too early. There were just two groups of people in the room, a couple near the entrance and two couples in the corner. I was ready to leave. But then I saw Mystery approach the people in the corner. They were sitting on opposite couches across a glass table. The men were on one side. One of them was Scott Baio, the actor best known for playing Chachi on Happy Days. Across from him were two women, a brunette and a bleached blonde who looked like she'd stepped out of the pages of Maxim. Her cut-off white t-shirt was suspended so high into the air by fake breasts that the bottom of it just hovered, flapping in the air. above a belly tightened by fastidious exercise. This woman was Bayo's date. She was also, I gathered, Mystery's target. His intentions were clear because he wasn't talking to her. Instead, he had his back turned to her and was showing something to Scott Baio and his friend, a well-dressed, well-tanned 30-something who looked as if he smelled strongly of aftershave. I moved in closer. "Be careful with that," Baio was saying. "It cost $40,000. Mystery had Baio's watch in his hands. He placed it carefully on the table. "Now watch this," he commanded. I tensed my stomach muscles, increasing the flow of oxygen to my brain, and as Mystery waved his hands over the watch, the second hand stopped ticking. He waited 15 seconds, then waved his hands again, and slowly the watch sputtered back to life, along with Baio's heart. Mystery's audience of four burst into applause. "Do something else," the blonde pleaded. Mystery brushed her off with a negotiable "Wow, she's so demanding," he said, turning to Baio. "Is she always like this?" We were witnessing group theory in action. The more Mystery performed for the guys, the more the blonde clamored for attention. And every time, he pushed her away and continued talking with his two new friends. "I don't usually go out," Baio was telling Mystery. "I'm over it, and I'm too old." After a few more minutes, Mystery finally acknowledged the blonde. He held his arms out. She placed her hands in his, and he began giving her a psychic reading. He was employing a technique I'd heard about called cold reading, the art of telling people truisms about themselves without any prior knowledge of their personality or background. In the field, all knowledge, however esoteric, is power. With each accurate sentence Mystery spoke, the blonde's jaw dropped further open, until she started asking him about his job and his psychic abilities. Every response Mystery gave was intended to accentuate his youth and enthusiasm for the good life Baio said he had outgrown. "I feel so old," Mystery said, baiting her. "How old are you?" she asked. 27. "That's not old. That's perfect." He was in. Mystery called me over and whispered in my ear. He wanted me to talk to Baio and his friend, to keep them occupied while he hit on the girl. This was my first experience as a wing, a term Mystery had taken from Top Gun, along with words like target and obstacle. I struggled to make small talk with them, but Baio, looking nervously at Mystery and his date, cut me off. "Tell me this is all an illusion," he said. "And he's not actually stealing my girlfriend." 10 long minutes later, Mystery stood up, put his arm around me, and we left the club. Outside, he pulled a cocktail napkin from his jacket pocket. It contained her phone number. "Did you get a good look at her?" Mystery asked. "That is what I'm in the game for. Everything I've learned I used tonight. It's all led up to this moment. And it worked." He beamed with self-satisfaction. "How's that for a demonstration?" That was all it took. Stealing a girl right from under a celebrity's nose has been or not, was a feat even Dustin couldn't have accomplished. Mystery was the real deal. As we took the limo to the Key Club, Mystery told us the first commandment of pickup, the 3-second rule. A man has 3 seconds after spotting a woman to speak to her, he said. If he takes any longer, then not only is the girl likely to think he's a creep who's been staring at her for too long, but he will start overthinking the approach, get nervous, and probably blow it. The moment we walked into the Key Club, Mystery put the 3-second rule into action. Striding up to a group of women, he held out his hands and asked, "What's your first impression of these?" Not the big hands, the black nails. As the girls gathered around him, Sin pulled me aside and suggested wandering the club and attempting my first approach. A group of women walked by and I tried to say something, but the word height just barely squeaked out of my throat, not even loud enough for them to hear. As they continued past, I followed and grabbed one of the girls on the shoulder from behind. She turned around, startled, and gave me the withering wada creep look that was the whole reason I was too scared to talk to women in the first place. Never, Sin admonished me in his adenoidal voice, approach a woman from behind. Always coming from the front, but at a slight angle so it's not too direct and confrontational. You should speak to her over your shoulder, so it looks like you might walk away at any minute. Ever see Robert Redford in The Horse Whisperer? It's kind of like that. A few minutes later, I spotted a young, tipsy-looking woman with long, tangled blonde curls and a puffy pink vest standing alone. I decided that approaching her would be an easy way to redeem myself. I circled around until I was in the 10 o'clock position in front of her and walked in, imagining myself approaching a horse I didn't want to frighten. "Oh my God," I said to her. "Did you see those 2 girls fighting outside?" "No," she said. "What happened?" She was interested. She was talking to me. It was working. 2 girls were fighting over this little guy who was half their size. It was pretty brutal. He was just standing there laughing as the police came and arrested the girls. She giggled. We started talking about the club and the band playing there. She was very friendly and actually seemed grateful for the conversation. I had no idea that approaching a woman could be this easy. Sin sidled up to me and whispered in my ear, "Go Kino." "What's Kino?" I asked. "Kino," the girl replied. Sin reached behind me, picked up my arm, and placed it on her shoulder. "Kino is when you touch a girl," he whispered. I felt the heat of her body and was reminded of how much I love human contact. Pets like to be petted. It isn't sexual when a dog or a cat begs for physical affection. People are the same way. We need touch. But we're so sexually screwed up and obsessed that we get nervous and uncomfortable whenever another person touches us. And, unfortunately, I am no exception. As I spoke to her, my hand felt wrong on her shoulder. It was just resting there like some disembodied limb, and I imagined her wondering what exactly it was doing there. and how she could gracefully extricate herself from under it. So I did her the favor of removing it myself. Isolate her, Sin said. I suggested sitting down, and we walked to a bench. Sin followed and sat behind us. As I had been taught, I asked her to tell me the qualities she finds attractive in guys. She said humor and ass. Fortunately, I have one of those qualities. Suddenly, I felt Sin's breath on my ear. Sniff her hair, he was instructing. I smelled her hair, although I wasn't exactly sure what the point was. I figured Sin wanted me to neg her. So I said, "It smells like smoke." "No." Sin hissed in my ear. I guess I wasn't supposed to nag. She seemed offended. So, to recover, I took another whiff, but underneath that, there's a very intoxicating smell. She cocked her head to one side, furrowed her brow ever so slightly, scanned me up and down, and said, "You're weird." I was blowing it. Fortunately, Mystery soon arrived. "This place is dead," he said. "We're going somewhere more target-rich." To Mystery and Sin, these clubs didn't seem to be reality. They had no problem whispering in students' ears while they were talking to women, dropping pickup terminology in front of strangers, and even interrupting a student during a set and explaining, in front of his group, what he was doing wrong. They were so confident and their talk was so full of incomprehensible jargon that the women rarely even raised an eyebrow, let alone suspected they were being used to train wannabe ladies' men. I bid my new friend goodbye as Sin had taught me, pointing to my cheek and saying, "Kiss goodbye." She actually pecked me. I felt very alpha. On the way out, as I stopped to use the bathroom, I found Extra Mask standing there, twirling an unwashed lock of hair in his fingers. "Are you waiting for the toilet?" I asked. "Sort of," he replied nervously. "Go ahead." I gave him a quizzical look. "Can I tell you something?" he asked. "Sure. I have a lot of trouble peeing beside guys in urinals. When there's another guy standing there, I can't fucking pee. Even if I'm peeing already and a guy walks up, I stop. And then I just stand there all nervous and shit. No one's judging you." "Yeah," he said. "I remember about a year ago, a guy and I were trying to piss in these urinals that were right next to each other, but we both just ended up standing there. We stood there for around 2 minutes, recognizing each other's pee shyness, until I zipped up and went to another bathroom." He paused. The guy never thanked me for changing bathrooms that day. I nodded, walked to the urinal, and discharged my duties with a distinct lack of self-consciousness. Compared to Extra Mask, I was going to be an easy student. As I left the bathroom, he was still standing there. "I always like urinal dividers," he said. "But you only seem to find them at the classy places." I was in high spirits in the limo to the next bar. "Do you think I could have kissed her?" I asked Mystery. "If you think you could have, then you could have," he said. "As soon as you ask yourself whether you should or shouldn't, that means you should. And what you do is, you phase shift. Imagine a giant gear thudding down in your head, and then go for it. Start hitting on her. Tell her you just noticed she has beautiful skin, and start massaging her shoulders. But how do you know it's okay? What I do is, I look for IOIs. An IOI is an indicator of interest. If she asks you what your name is, that's an IOI. If she asks you if you're single, that's an IOI. If you take her hands and squeeze them, and she squeezes back, that's an IOI. And as soon as I get 3 IOIs, I phase shift. I don't even think about it. It's like a computer program. But how do you kiss her? Sweater asked. I just say, would you like to kiss me? And then what happens? One of 3 things, Mystery said. If she says, yes, which is very rare, you kiss her. If she says, maybe, or hesitates, then you say, let's find out, and kiss her. And if she says, no, you say, I didn't say you could. It just looked like you had something on your mind. You see, he grinned triumphantly. You have nothing to lose. Every contingency is planned for. It's foolproof. That is the mystery kiss close. I furiously scribbled every word of the kiss close in my notebook. No one had ever told me how to kiss a girl before. It was just one of those things men were supposed to know on their own, like shaving and car repair. Sitting in the limo with a notebook on my lap, listening to Mystery talk, I asked myself why I was really there. Taking a course in picking up women wasn't the kind of thing normal people did. Even more disturbing, I wondered why it was so important to me, why I'd become so quickly obsessed with the online community and its leading pseudonyms. Perhaps it was because attracting the opposite sex was the only area of my life in which I felt like a complete failure. Every time I walked down the street or into a bar, I saw my own failure staring me back in the face with red lipstick and black mascara. The combination of desire and paralysis was deadly. After the workshop that night, I opened my file cabinet and dug through my papers. There was something I wanted to find, something I hadn't looked at in years. After a half hour, I found it, a folder labeled High School Writing. I pulled out a piece of lined notebook paper covered from top to bottom with my chicken scratching. It was the only poem I've ever attempted in my life. It was written in 11th grade, and I never showed it to anyone. However, it was the answer to my question. Sexual Frustration by Neil Strauss. The only reason you go out, the only objective in mind, a glimpse of a familiar pair of legs on a busy street, or a squeeze from a female who you can only call your friend. A scoreless night fosters hostility. A scoreless weekend breeds animosity. Through red eyes all the world is seen. Angry at friends and family for no reason that they can perceive. Only you know why you are so mad. There's the just friends one who you've known for so long, who respects you so much that you can't do what you want. And she no longer bothers to put on her false personality and flirt because she thinks you like her for who she is when what you liked about her was her flirtatiousness. When your own hand becomes your best lover. When your life-giving fertilizer is wasted in a Kleenex and flushed down the toilet. You wonder when you are going to stop thinking about what could have happened that night when you almost got somewhere. There's the coy one who smiles and looks like she wants to meet you, but you can't work up the nerve to talk. So instead she will become one of your nighttime fantasies where you could have but didn't. Your hand will be substituted for hers. When you neglect work and meaningful activities. When you neglect the ones who really love you. For a shot at a target that you rarely hit. Does everyone get lucky with women but you? Or do females just not want it as bad as you do? In the decades since I'd written that poem, nothing had changed. I still couldn't write poetry. And, more important, I still felt the same way. Perhaps signing up for Mystery's workshop had been an intelligent decision. After all, I was doing something proactive about my lameness. Even the wise man dwells in the fool's paradise. On the last night of the workshop, Mystery and Sin took us to a bar called the Saddle Ranch, a country-themed meat market on the Sunset Strip. I'd been there before, not to pick up women, but to ride the mechanical bull. One of my goals in Los Angeles was to master the machine at its fastest setting. But not today. After 3 consecutive nights of going out until 2 o'clock a.m. and then breaking down approaches with Mystery and the other students. Far beyond the allotted half hour, I was wiped out. Within minutes, however, our tireless professor of pickup was at the bar, making out with a loud, tipsy girl who kept trying to steal his scarf. Watching Mystery work, I noticed that he used the exact same openers, routines, and lines, and got a phone number or a tongue down nearly every time, even if the woman was with a boyfriend. I'd never seen anything like it. Sometimes a woman he was talking to was even moved to tears. As I walked toward the mechanical bull ring, feeling foolish in a red cowboy hat Mystery had insisted I wear, I saw a girl with long black hair, a form-fitting sweater, and tan legs sticking out of a ruffled skirt. She was talking animatedly to 2 guys, bouncing around them like a cartoon character. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3. Hey, looks like the party's over here. I spoke to the guys, then turned to face the girl. I stuttered for a moment. I knew the next line. Mystery had been pushing it on me all weekend, but I'd been dreading using it. If I wasn't gay, you'd be so mine. A huge smile spread across her face. I like your hat, she screeched, grabbing the brim. I guess peacocking did work. Hey, now, I told her, repeating a line I had heard Mystery use earlier. Hands off the merchandise. She responded by throwing her arms around me and telling me I was fun. Every ounce of fear evaporated with her acceptance. The secret to meeting women, I realized, is simply knowing what to say, and when and how to say it. How do you all know each other? I asked. I just met them, she said. My name is Elenova. She curtsied. Clumsily, I took that as an IOI. I showed Elanova an ESP trick Mystery had taught me earlier that ever. Ning, in which I guessed a number she was thinking between 1 and 10. Hint, it's almost always 7, and she clapped her hands together gleefully. The guys, in the presence of my superior game, wandered off. When the bar closed, Elanova and I moved outside. Every AFC we walked past gave me the thumbs up and said, "She's hot or you lucky bastard." What idiots. They were fucking up my game, that is, if I could figure out a way to tell Elanova I was straight. Hopefully, she'd figured it out on her own by now. I remembered Sin telling me to Kino, so I put my arm around her. This time, however, she backed away. That was definitely not an IOI. As I took a step toward her to try again, one of the guys she'd been with in the bar arrived. She flirted with him as I stood there stupidly. When she turned back to me a few minutes later, I told her we should hang out sometime. She agreed, and we exchanged numbers. Mystery, Sin, and the boys were all in the limo, watching the whole exchange go down. I climbed inside, thinking I was hot shit for number closing in front of them all. But Mystery wasn't impressed. "You got that number close," he said, "because you forced yourself on her. You let her play with you." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Have I ever told you about cat string theory?" "No." "Listen. Have you ever seen a cat play with a string? Well, when the string is dangling above its head, just out of reach, the cat goes crazy trying to get it. It leaps in the air, dances around, and chases it all over the room. But as soon as you let go of the string and it drops right between the cats. Pause. It just looks at the string for a second and then walks away. It's bored. It doesn't want it anymore. So that girl moved away from you and you put your arm around her. And you ran right back to her like a puppy dog. You should have punished her, turned away and talked to someone else. Let her work to get your attention back. After that, she made you wait while she talked to that dork. What should I have done? You should have said, to let you two be alone, and started to walk away, as if you were giving her to him even though you knew she liked you more. You have to act like you are the prize. I smiled. I think I really understood. Yeah, he said. Be the dancing string. I grew silent and thought about it, kicking my legs up against the bar counter of the limousine and slouching into the seat. Mystery turned to Sin, and they talked amongst themselves for several minutes. It felt like they were discussing me. I tried not to make eye contact with them. I wondered if they were going to tell me that I'd held the workshop up, that I wasn't yet ready for it, that I should study for another 6 months and then take it again. Suddenly, Mystery and Sin ended their huddle. Mystery broke into a wide smile and looked straight at me. "You're one of us," he said. "You're going to be a superstar." MSN Group, Mystery's Lounge. Subject, Sex Magic. Awe or Mystery. My mystery method workshop in Los Angeles kicked ass. I've decided to Teach several impressive ways to demonstrate mind power through magic at my next workshop. After all, some of you need something with which to convey your charming personalities. If you're going in without an edge, like if you say, "Hi, I'm an accountant," you will not capture your target's attention and curiosity. So, since the workshop, I've retired the FMAC model and broken down the approach to 13 detailed steps. Here's the basic format to all approaches. 1. Smile when you walk into a room. See the group with the target and follow the 3-second rule. Do not hesitate, approach instantly. 2. Recite a memorized opener, if not 2 or 3 in a row. 3. The opener should open the group, not just the target. When talking, ignore the target for the most part. If there are men in the group, focus your attention on the men. 4. Nag the target with one of the slew of nags we've come up with. Tell her, "It's so cute. Your nose wiggles when you laugh." Then get her friends to notice and laugh about it. 5. Convey personality to the entire group. Do this by using stories, magic, anecdotes, and humor. Pay particular attention to the men and the less attractive women. During this time, the target will notice that you are the center of attention. You may perform various memorized pieces like the photo routine too, but only for the obstacles. 6. Nag the target again if appropriate. If she wants to look at the pictures, for example, say, "Oh my God, she's so grabby. How do you roll with her?" 7. Ask the group, "So, how does everyone know each other?" If the target is with one of the guys, find out how long they've been together. If it's a serious relationship, eject politely by saying, "Pleasure meeting you." 8. If she is not spoken for, say to the group, "I've sort of been alienating your friend. Is it all right if I speak to her for a couple of minutes?" They always say, "Sure," if it's okay with her. If you've executed the preceding steps correctly, she will agree. 9. Isolate her from the group by telling her you want to show her something cool. Take her to sit with you nearby. As you lead her through the crowd, do a keynote test by holding her hand. If she squeezes back, it's on. Start looking for other IOIs. 10. Sit with her and perform a rune reading, an ESP test, or any other demonstration that will fascinate and intrigue her. 11. Tell her, beauty is common, but what's rare is a great energy and outlook on life. Tell me, what do you have inside that would make me want to know you as more than a mere face in the crowd? If she begins to list qualities, this is a positive IOI. 12. Stop talking. Does she reinitiate the chat with a question that begins with the word "so"? If she does, you've now seen 3 IOIs and can. 13. Kiss close. Say, out of the blue, "Would you like to kiss me?" If the setting or circumstances aren't conducive to physical intimacy, then give yourself a time constraint by saying, "I have to go, but we should continue this." Then get her number and leave. Sure, there's Ovid, the Roman poet who wrote The Art of Love, Don Juan, the mythical womanizer based on the exploits of various Spanish noblemen, the Duc de Lauzun, the legendary French rake who died on the guillotine, and Casanova, who detailed his 100+ conquests in 4,000 pages of memoirs. But the undisputed father of modern seduction is Ross Jeffries, a tall, skinny, porous-faced self-proclaimed nerd from Marina del Rey, California. Guru, cult leader, and social gadfly, he commands an army, 60,000 horny men strong, including top government officials, intelligence officers, and cryptographers. His weapon is his voice. After years of studying everyone from master hypnotists to Hawaiian kahunas, he claims to have found the technology. And make no mistake about it, that's what it is, that will turn any responsive woman into a libidinous puddle. Jeffries, who claims to be the inspiration for Tom Cruise's character in Magnolia, calls it speed seduction. Jeffries developed speed seduction in 1988 after ending a 5-year streak of sexlessness with the help of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, a controversial fusion of hypnosis and psychology that emerged from the personal development boom of the 1970s and led to the rise of self-help gurus like Anthony Robbins. The fundamental precept of NLP is that one's thoughts, feelings, and behavior, and the thoughts, feelings, and behavior of others can be manipulated through words, suggestions, and physical gestures designed to influence the subconscious. The potential of NLP to revolutionize the art of seduction was obvious to Jeffries. Over the years, Jeffries has either outlasted, sued, or crushed any competitor in the field of pickup to make his school, speed seduction, the dominant model for getting a woman's lips to touch a man's, that is, until Mystery came along and started teaching workshops. Thus, the clamor online for an eyewitness account of Mystery's first workshop was overwhelming. Mystery's admirers wanted to know if the class was worthwhile. His enemies, particularly Jeffries and his disciples, wanted to tear him apart. So I obliged, posting a detailed description of my experiences. At the end of my review, I issued a call for wings in Los Angeles, asking only that they be somewhat confident, intelligent, and socially comfortable. I knew that in order to become a pickup artist myself, I would somehow have to internalize everything I had seen Mystery do. This would happen only through practice, through hitting the bars and clubs every night until I became a natural like Dustin, or even an unnatural like Mystery. The day my report on the workshop hit the internet, I received an email from someone in Encino nicknamed Grimble, who identified himself as a Ross Jeffries student. He wanted to sarge with me, as he put it. Sarging is pickup artist jargon for going out to meet women. The term evidently has its origin in the name of one of Ross Jeffries' cats, Sargy. An hour after I sent him my phone number, Grimble called. More than Mystery, it was Grimble who would initiate me into what could only be described as a secret society. "Hey, man," he said, in a conspiratorial hiss. "So what do you think of Mystery's game?" I gave him my assessment. "Wow, I like it, he said. But you have to hang out with two-timer and me sometime. We've been sarging with Ross Jeffries a lot. Really? I'd love to meet him. Listen, can you keep a secret? Sure. How much technology do you use in your sarges? Technology? You know, how much is technique and how much is just talking? I guess 50-50, I said. I'm up to 90%. What? Yeah, I use a can opener, then I elicit her values and find out her trance words. And then I go into one of the secret patterns. Do you know the October Man sequence? Never heard of it, unless Arnold Schwarzenegger was in it. Oh, man. I had a girl over here last week, and I gave her a whole new identity. I did a sexual value elicitation, and then changed her whole timeline and internal reality. Then I brushed my finger along her face, telling her to notice, and here he switched to a slow, hypnotic voice. How wherever I touch, it leaves a trail of energy moving through you, and wherever you can feel this energy spreading, the deeper you want to allow yourself to feel these sensations, becoming even more intense. And then what? I brushed my finger along her lips, and she started sucking it, he exclaimed triumphantly. Full close. Wow, I said. I had no idea what he was talking about. But I wanted this technology. I thought back to all the times I'd taken women to my house, sat on the bed next to them, leaned in for the kiss, and been deflected with the let's just be friends speech. In fact, this rejection is such a universal experience that Ross Jeffries invented not just an acronym for it, LJBF, but a litany of responses. As well. Point 3. I talked to Grimble for 2 hours. He seemed to know everybody. From legends like Steve P., who supposedly had a cult of women paying cash for the privilege of sexually servicing him, to guys like Rick H., Ross's most famous student, thanks to an incident that involved him, a hot tub, and 5 women. Grimble would make a perfect wing. I drove to Grimble's house in Encino the following night to go sarging. This would be my first time in the field since Mystery's workshop. It would also be my first time hanging out one-on-one with a stranger I'd met online. All I really knew about him was that he was a college student and he liked girls. When I pulled up, Grimble strode outside and flashed a big smile that I didn't quite trust. He didn't seem dangerous or mean. He just seemed slippery. Like a politician or a salesman or, I suppose, a seducer. He had the complexion of barley tea, though he was actually German. In fact, he claimed to be a descendant of Otto von Bismarck. He wore a brown leather jacket over a silver floral print shirt, which was unbuttoned to reveal an eerily hairless chest thrust out further than his nose. In his hands was a plastic bag full of videotapes, which he dumped into the back of my car. He reminded me of a mongoose. These are some of Ross's seminars, he said. You'll really like the DC seminar, because he gets into synesthesia there. The other tapes are from Kim and Tom, Ross's ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend. It's their new York seminar, advanced anchoring and other sneaky stuff. What's anchoring? I asked. My wing two-timer will show you when you meet him. Ever experienced condiment anchoring before? I had so much to learn. Men generally don't communicate to one other with the same level of emotional depth and intimate detail as most. Women discuss everything. When a man sees his friends after getting laid, they ask, how'd it go? And in return, he gives them either a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That's how it's done. To discuss the experience in detail would mean giving your friends mental images they don't really want to have. It is a taboo among men to picture their best friends naked or having sex, because then they might find themselves aroused, and we all know what that means. So, ever since I'd first started harboring lustful thoughts in 6th grade, I'd assumed that sex was something that just happened to guys if they went out a lot and exposed themselves to chance. After all, that's why they called it getting lucky. The only tool they had in their belt was persistence. Of course, there were some men who were sexually comfortable around women who would tease them mercilessly until they had them eating out of their hands. But that wasn't me. It took all of my courage to simply ask a woman for the time or where Melrose Avenue was. I didn't know anything about anchoring, eliciting values, rhyming trance words, or these other things Grimble kept talking about. How did I ever get laid without all this technology? It was a quiet Tuesday night in the valley, and the only place Grimble knew to go was the local TGI Fridays. In the car, we warmed up, listening to cassette tapes of Sarges by Rick H., practicing openers, faking smiles, and dancing in our seats to get energetic. It was one of the most ridiculous things I'd ever done, but I was entering a new world now, with its own rules of behavior. We walked in the door of the restaurant, confident, smiling, alpha. Unfortunately, no one noticed. There were 2 guys at the bar watching a baseball game on television, a group of business people at a corner table, and a mostly male bar staff. We strutted to the balcony. As we pushed the door open, a woman appeared. Time to put what I've learned to the test. Hey, I said to her. Let me get your opinion on something. She stopped and listened. She was about 4'10", with short, frizzy hair and a marshmallow body, but she had a nice smile. She would be good practice. I decided to use the Maury Povich opener. My friend Grimble there just got a call today from the Maury Povich show. I began. And it seems they're doing a segment on secret admirers. Evidently, someone has a little crush on him. Do you think he should go on the show or not? Sure, she answered. Why not? But what if his secret admirer is a man? I asked. Talk shows always need to put an unexpected twist on everything. Or what if it's a relative? It's not lying, it's flirting. She laughed. Perfect. Would you do the show? I asked. Probably not, she answered. Suddenly, Grimble stepped in. So you would make me go on the show? But you wouldn't do it yourself, he teased her. "You're not adventurous at all, are you?" It was great to watch him work. Where I would have let the conversation wane into small talk, he was already leading her somewhere sexual. "I am," she protested. "Then prove it to me," he said, smiling. "Let's try a little exercise. It's called synesthesia." He took a step closer to her. "Have you ever heard of synesthesia? It will enable you to find all kinds of resources to accomplish and feel the things you want in life. Synesthesia is the nerve gas in the arsenal of the speed seducer. Literally, it is an overlapping of the senses. In the context of seduction, however, synesthesia refers to a type of waking hypnosis in which a woman is put into a heightened state of awareness and told to imagine pleasurable images and sensations growing in intensity. The goal, to make her uncontrollably aroused. She agreed and closed her eyes. I was finally going to get to hear one of Ross's secret patterns. But as soon as Grimble began, a stocky, red-faced jock wearing a pocket undershirt marched up to him. "What are you doing?" he asked Grimble. I was showing her a self-improvement exercise called synesthesia. "Well, that's my wife." I had forgotten to check for a wedding ring, though I doubted minor inconveniences like marriage mattered to Grimble. "Go disarm the guy," Grimble turned to me and hissed, "while I work on the girl." I had no idea how to disarm him. He didn't seem quite as laid back as Scott Baio. "He can show you the exercise, too," I said wanly. "It's really cool." "I don't know what the fuck you're talking about," the guy said. "What is this thing supposed to do to me?" He took a step closer and leaned his face into mine. He smelled like whiskey and onion rings. "It tells you whether, I stammered. "Never mind." The guy lifted his hands and pushed me backward. Though I tell girls I'm 5 feet and 8 inches, I'm actually 5'6". The top of my head just reached his shoulders. "Stop it," his wife, our former Sarge, said. She turned to us. "He's drunk. He gets like this." "Like what?" I asked. "Violent?" She smiled sadly. "You seem like a great couple," I said. My attempt to disarm him had clearly failed, because he was about to disarm me. His red, drunken face was 2 inches from mine and yelling about ripping something. "Pleasure meeting you both," I squeaked, slowly backing away. "Remind me," Grimble said as we retreated to the car, "to teach you how to handle the AMOG." "The AMOG?" "Yes, the alpha male of the group." "Oh, I see." For days later, as I sat at home alone on a Saturday afternoon watching the videos Grimble had given me, he called with good news. He and his wing, two-timer, were going to meet Ross Jeffries at California Pizza Kitchen for an expedition to the Getty Museum, and I was invited. I arrived 15 minutes early, selected a booth, and read through printouts of seduction board posts until Ross, Grimble, and Two-Timer arrived. Two-Timer had black hair gelled to the texture of a licorice vine, a matching leather jacket, and a snake-like quality. With his round, babyish face, he looked like a Grimble clone who'd been inflated by a bicycle pump. As I stood up to introduce myself, Ross cut me off. He was not the most polite person I'd ever met. He wore a long wool overcoat, which flowed loosely around his legs when he walked. He was thin and gawky with gray stubble and greasy skin. His hairline was a receding mop of short, unkempt, ash-colored curls, and the hook in his nose was so pronounced he could have hung his overcoat on it. "So what did you learn from Mystery?" Ross asked with a sneer. "A lot," I told him. "Like what?" "Well, one of my sticking points was knowing when a girl was attracted to me. Now I know." "And how do you know?" he asked. "When I get 3 indicators of interest." "Name them." "Let's see. When she asks you what your name is. That's 1. When you take her hands in yours and squeeze them, and she squeezes back. That's 2. And, I can't remember the rest right now." He leapt to his feet. "Then he's not a very good teacher, is he?" "No, he was a great teacher," I protested. "Then name the 3rd indicator of interest." "I can't think of it right now." I felt like an animal backed into a corner. "Case closed," he said. He was good. A short waitress with blue nails, a touch of baby fat, and sandy brown hair arrived to take our order. Ross looked at her, and then winked at me. "These are my students," he told her. "I'm their guru." "Really?" she asked, feigning interest. "What would you say if I told you that I teach people how to use mind control to attract any person they desire?" "Get out of here." "Yes, it's true. I could make you fall in love with any person at this table." "And how's that? With mind control?" She was skeptical, but bordering. "I'm curious. Let me ask you something. When you're really attracted to somebody, how do you know? In other words, what signals do you get from yourself inside that allow you to realize?" And here he lowered his voice, slowly pronouncing each word. "You're really attracted to this guy." The purpose of the question, I would find out later, was to make the waitress feel the emotion of attraction in his presence, and thus associate those feelings with his face. She thought about it for a moment. "Well, I guess I get a funny feeling in my stomach, like butterflies." Ross put his hand, palm up, in front of his stomach. "Yes, and I bet that the more attracted you become, the more those butterflies rise up from your stomach." He began slowly raising his hand to the level of his heart, "until your face begins to flush, like it is right now." Two-timer leaned over and whispered, "That's anchoring. It's when you associate a feeling, like attraction, with a touch or a gesture. Now, every time Ross raises his hand like that, she gets attracted to him." After a few more minutes of Ross's flirtatious hypnospeak, the waitress's eyes began to glaze over. Ross seized the opportunity to toy with her mercilessly. He raised his hands like an elevator from his stomach to his face, every few seconds, smiling as it made her blush every time. The dishes she was carrying were forgotten, balancing precariously on her weakening arm. With your boyfriend, Ross continued, were you attracted right away? He snapped, freeing her from her trance. Or did it take time? Well, we broke up, she said. But it took a while. We were friends first. Isn't it so much better, though, when you just feel that sense of attraction? He moved his hand up like an elevator and her eyes began to glaze again, right away for someone. He pointed to himself, which I assumed was another NLP trick to make her think he was that someone. It's incredible, isn't it? Yes, she agreed, completely oblivious to her other tables. What was wrong with your boyfriend? He was too immature. Ross seized the opportunity. Well, you should date more mature men. I was just thinking that, about you, as we were talking. She giggled. I bet that when you first came to the table, I was the last person you thought you'd be attracted to. It's strange, she said, because you're not my usual type. Ross suggested they get together for coffee when she wasn't working. And she jumped at the opportunity to give him her phone number. His technique was so different than Mystery's, but he seemed to be the real deal too. Ross let out a loud, victorious laugh. Well, your other customers are probably getting angry. But before you go, I'll tell you what. Why don't we take all those good feelings you're having right now, raising his hands again, and put them into this pack of sugar. He picked up a sugar pack and rubbed his raised hand on it so that you can carry them around with you all day. He handed her the sugar pack. She put it in her apron and walked away, still beet red. That, two-timer hissed, is condiment anchoring. After he's gone, the sugar pack will remind her of the positive emotions she felt with him. As we left the restaurant, Ross ran the exact same routine on the hostess and collected her number. Both women were in their 20s, Ross was in his 40s. I was floored. We pressed into Ross's sob and headed to the Getty. Anything you want from a woman, attraction, lust, fascination, is just an internal process that she runs through her body and her brain, he explained as he drove. And all you need to evoke that process are questions that make her go into her body and brain and actually experience it in order to answer you. Then she will link those feelings of attraction to you. Sitting in the back seat with me, two-timers scanned my face for a reaction. What do you think? He asked. Amazing, I said. Evil, he corrected, letting a thin smile creep over his lips. When we arrived at the Getty, two-timer turned his attention to Ross. I wanted to ask you about the October Man sequence, he prodded. I've been switching around a few of the steps. Ross turned to him. You understand that these things are very bad? As he spoke, Ross wagged a finger at two-timer's chest, over his heart. He was anchoring again, trying to associate the notion of badness with the forbidden pattern. There's a reason I don't teach them at my seminars. Why is that? Two-timer asked. Because, Ross answered, it's like giving dynamite to children. Two-timer smiled again. I could tell exactly what he was thinking. Because, in my mind, the word evil was anchored to that smile. Darwin talked about survival of the fittest, Two-Timer explained to me as we walked through the museum's collection of pre-20th century art. In earlier times, this meant that the strong survived. But strength doesn't help one get ahead in society today. Women breed with seducers who understand how to trigger, through words and touch, the fantasy parts of the female brain. There was something artificial and rehearsed about the way he spoke, the way he moved, the way he looked at me. It felt as if he were sucking my soul into his eyes. So the whole idea of survival of the fittest is an anachronism. As players, we stand at the gate of a new era. The survival of the smoothest. I liked the idea, though unfortunately I was no smoother than I was strong. My voice was fast and choppy, my movements effete, my body language awkward. For me, survival was going to take work. Casanova was one of us, Two-Timer went on. But we live a better lifestyle. Well, it probably took a lot more work to seduce a woman back then. Because of the morals of the day, I said, trying to contribute something useful. And we have the technology. You mean NLP? Not just that. He had to work alone. He grinned as his gaze bore deeper into my eyes. We have each other. We lurked through the galleries, gazing at the people gazing at paintings. I watched as Grimble and Two-Timer talked to various women. But I was far too scared to approach in front of Ross. It felt like trying to play the cello in front of Yo-Yo Ma. I was afraid he'd criticize everything I did or get upset that I wasn't using enough of his technology. On the other hand, this was a guy who advised students to get over their fear of approaching by walking up to random women and saying, "Hi, I'm Manny the Martian. What's your favorite flavor of bowling ball?" So I really didn't have to worry about looking foolish in front of him. He created fools. At the end of the day, Ross had 3 numbers. Two-Timer and Grimble had 2 each. And I had nothing. As we took the train downhill to the museum parking lot, Ross slid into the seat next to me. "Listen," he said. "I have a seminar coming up in a few months. And I will let you sit in and take it for free." "Thanks," I said. "I am going to be your guru. Not mystery. You'll see that what I am teaching is 100 times more powerful." I wasn't sure how to respond. They were competing over me and AFC. "And one more thing," Ross said. "In exchange, I want you to take me to 5, no, 6 Hollywood parties with super hot babes. I need to widen my horizons." He smiled and asked, "Do we have a deal?" as he rubbed his thumb on his chin. I was sure he was anchoring me.